This week on ICN, the stories you should have heard, but didn't. Banks hooked on drug money. Which is more dangerous, Pakistan or Phoenix, Arizona? We've experienced the subprime earthquake. Are you ready for the jumbo aftershock? Asia, taking steps toward a regional currency? Those stories and more next on Informed Citizen News. Hello, and welcome to ICN, Informed Citizen News, March 1st, 2009. The banks are not only broke, but they're hooked on drugs. Dave Gibson wrote an article this week titled, "The Banking Industry's Dirty Little Secret, Money Laundering for the Drug Cartels." He reported several examples where banks were caught laundering money for the drug cartels, paid a fine, and avoided prosecution. In 1998, our favorite government-run bank, Citibank, was caught transferring hundreds of millions of dollars out of Mexico to Citibank in New York on behalf of the brother of the Mexican president. Citibank was then sending the money to banks in Switzerland. Considering the fact that many U.S. banks have engaged in laundering drug profits for the powerful and violent cartels, the $700 billion bank bailout seems even more questionable. The fact that none of that bailout money went to help homeowners facing foreclosure, combined with the Treasury's refusal to specifically tell Congress where $200 billion went, makes you wonder if the relationship between the banks and the drug cartels goes far beyond what we're being told by the Department of Justice. At the risk of trivializing this story, there's a dramatization of this unseemly relationship between the banks and drug money in a YouTube video. Do a YouTube search for Prodigal Son, the origin of Mr. Burns. We think the viewers will find it eerie, disturbing, and maybe too close to reality. This next story is not for the squeamish. We feel the graphic descriptions are required to relay the intensity of the situation, so be forewarned. Local authorities call the wave of kidnappings an epidemic. According to the Associated Press, some of the hostages have their fingers, legs, and heads cut off, while others are bound and gagged in pools of water before being zapped with electrical devices. If the victim is female, she is often raped while her husband is forced to listen on the other end of a telephone line. If their demands are not met, corpses are soon discovered in the desert, gunshot wounds to the skull and body. Do these descriptions originate from Afghanistan, a brutal Iraqi prison, or the war-torn region of Somalia? No, all these reports came directly from the southwest portion of the United States. Specifically, Brian Ross of ABC News reported, Phoenix, Arizona has become the kidnapping capital of America, with more incidents than any other city in the world outside Mexico City and over 370 cases last year alone. The vast majority of kidnappings are connected to Mexican drug cartels and illegal immigrants coming across the border. Phoenix Police Department Detective Phil Roberts states quite clearly, Phoenix is ground zero for illegal narcotics smuggling and illegal human smuggling in the United States. The motive is obvious. Whereas drug dealing and scurrying illegals through the desert bring in millions of dollars, Tim Gaynor of Reuters reported that ransoms can range from $50,000 to $1 million. Phoenix police have traced the source of this activity directly back to Sinaloa, a state in western Mexico. As ICN reported previously, Mexico has become one of the most violent countries in the world with approximately 10,000 murders in the past 2 years. Another law enforcement officer compared the Arizona border to that of Pakistan. Kidnappings are also on the rise in San Diego and in Texas. Mexican drug cartels have published lists of Americans, including law enforcement officials, who are targeted for assassination. The federal government has been of little help. In fact, Obama thought former Arizona Governor Napolitano did such a great job that she was promoted to the head of Homeland Security. As Brian Ross says, Phoenix officials are troubled because they say Washington, D.C. is too obsessed with Al-Qaeda terrorists to care about what's happening in their own backyard. It's official. Calling this collapse the subprime crisis isn't going to work anymore. A report just came out that indicated that luxury homeowners are falling behind on mortgage payments at the fastest pace in more than 15 years. A sign that the U.S. financial crisis, beginning with the poorest Americans, has reached the wealthiest. 3% of jumbo borrowers who took out loans in 2008 are already missing payments. We are talking about homes above $417,000. Areas of the country that thought they were getting through the real estate collapse unscathed now are seeing foreclosure signs go up around their neighborhood. The real estate collapse is still accelerating downward. Where it stops, nobody knows. Finance ministers from Japan, China, South Korea, and 10 Southeast Asian nations agreed to form a $120 billion pool of foreign exchange reserves that can be used by countries to defend their currencies, in an expansion of efforts to battle fallout from the global financial crisis. This is a step toward establishing a regional Asian currency. Regional currencies like the euro strip members of their individual sovereignty. We have seen this script before, the continuing march toward regional and ultimately global governance. Now for our rapid-fire segment to cover the remaining news. The fastest reduction in U.S. dividends since 1955 is depriving investors of the only thing that gave stocks an advantage over government bonds in the last century. A total of 288 companies cut or suspended payouts last quarter, the most since Standard & Poor's records began 54 years ago. As we transition from the greater fool theory of stock investing, dividends are critical to stock investors. Predictions based on future dividends show stock shares are overvalued by as much as 46%. That means a Dow of 3,500 and an S&P of 400. Ouch. Ever heard of the Dow-Gold ratio? You need to look into it. It's the comparison of the Dow average versus the price of 1 ounce of gold. Right now the Dow is at about 7,000 and 1 ounce of gold is $950. This is a ratio of 7.5 to 1. To put it in perspective, in 1999, the Dow was 44 times the price of 1 ounce of gold. Now it's 7.5 to 1. Experts say that in times of severe crisis, the Dow will fall to equal the price of 1 ounce of gold. The Dow has equaled 1 ounce of gold twice in the last century. First in 1933 during the Great Depression, and again in 1980 at the end of the stagflation 70s. Will the Dow equal 1 ounce of gold sometime in the next few years? Wouldn't bet against it. Last Tuesday, the stock market went up almost 3% in the last few hours of trading. The mainstream media attributed the sharp increase to Fed Chairman Bernanke's testimony before Congress that the economy will likely turn around in late 2009. This is the same so-called expert who said in March of 2007, "At this juncture, the impact on the broader economy and financial markets of the problems in the subprime markets seems likely to be contained." Strike one. In May 2007, Bernanke said, "While rising delinquencies and foreclosures will continue to weigh heavily on the housing market this year, it will not cripple the U.S." Strike two. In February 2008, just 15 days before Bear Stearns failed, he said, "I expect there will be some failures. I don't anticipate any serious problems of that sort among the large internationally active banks that make up a very substantial part of our banking system." Strike three. This is too good to stop here. In May 2008, he eloquently said, "Despite a recent spike in the nation's unemployment rate, the danger that the U.S. economy has fallen into a substantial downturn appears to have waned." Strike four. In June 2008, less than 60 days before their actual failure, Bernanke predicted, "Freddie and Fannie will make it through the storm. They're in no danger of failing and are adequately capitalized." Strike five. Bernanke is in charge of the economy as chairman of the Federal Reserve, and he has been wrong at every stage of this crisis. 5 strikes, and he is still at bat. Heaven help us all. Thanks again for joining us at ICN. We see from your comments that a lot of our viewers are already very informed. We need you to share our channel with those of your friends and family who need to see the real news. We provide ICN as a public service to introduce people to critical news not found in the mainstream media. Again, thanks for watching. From all of us at Informed Citizen News, have a good week.